104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Happy Easter, Ned.
Out to the others, too.
Well, I'm starting with you. Happy Easter to you, Ned.
Well, that's very kind, and to you, sir.
The Easter Bunny bring you anything this morning?
Not today, no. Yesterday we had our Easter celebrations, so it was 24 hours in advance.
I thought he brought you a shot of cinnamon whiskey.
Oh, they did, yes.
Our Easter Bunny's been here. He's been passing out cinnamon whiskey. Happy Easter to you, Alex Scott.
Thank you.
Wearing your Cardinal red today. They got their first win last night.
First win, and,
Almost didn't get it, but
almost,
did get it.
But a 4-game series in L.A. for this team. If they go 1-3, that's about as good as you can hope for, even, or 2-2, and that's really as good as you can hope for.
And Josh Roberts, happy Easter to you.
Happy Easter to you.
And you know what we do? We tell Josh that we're on the air about a half hour earlier than what we are, and we tell him that's the soccer segment of the show.
We've already discussed it.
We've already
sorry,
discussed
everybody out there that really loves soccer.
Real riveting conversation.
Yes.
We really got into it.
Let's start out with some breaking news, and we'll just pass along to you what we know. There was an accident in Dallas that involved a car owned by Rashid Rice. There is no news about whether he was driving the car, in the car, involved in what is apparently a very serious accident. His car was the Corvette. There was a Lamborghini, and you can imagine with those two words in a sentence that they were speeding, and they were. They caused an accident that 6 cars piled up on, and the last word that we got, both drivers ran from the vehicles after the crash. Ned? Got your fingers crossed on this one,
You just gave us all the details on it. There's nothing else to comment. Nobody knows anything. You assume, since the law is looking for Rashid Rice, that he was one of the drivers. You assume that.
Yeah.
You don't know it, though. But there was a little bit more definitive reports did indicate that he was the driver of the Corvette and ran from the scene. Now, this is on a superhighway, apparently, in Dallas, in which there were a multitude of cars involved because those two were speeding and caused the accident. And to have both drivers run from the scene, that's a zero, folks. That just is not allowed to happen.
Yeah, it's, this is a kid that has a huge upside, and I think all of us can say, whether you're a Chiefs fan or not, you've got your fingers crossed that he was not specifically involved in this accident.
Yeah.
So we will pass along to you what we know as we go along throughout the show today. It is Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. Joe Westen, Alex Scott, Josh Roberts, and you heard from Ned Reynolds right there. And I guess the place that I would like to start, because there's a ton of stuff going on, but let's stay with football. And I want to start about the rule changes that came down this week.
Well, I think they come into vogue. Now, the tackling one, I have a close friend in town. You guys know who he is, and the audience probably does too, who was an NFL ref, who said, how are they going to adjudicate this rule? How is it going to be called? Because it does involve tackling a runner, all right? The rule states that you can't throw the runner down and have your body fall on his legs. Well, I don't know how you're going to judge that. And if so, if it involves replay, what's it going to have, 45 minutes to each game? For heaven's sake, you can judge every tackle as being something like that. The other one, the other rule change, has manifested itself with the Chiefs getting a player. And that is where the kickoffs, the only individuals who are moving on a kickoff are the kicker and the 2 receivers. Everybody else is stationary. So who did the Kansas City Chiefs pick up? A rugby player from Wales named Rhys Cabot. And why would they pick him up? He's not very big, doesn't play football, but he is very fast. He's like about a 4.3 40-yard dash. Only difference is in rugby you don't wear equipment. In football you do. But if you're the only one who's moving and the defenders are standing still, I can see him. His chances of making the team are probably limited, but I can see him being a very big weapon on a special team situation. Alec?
Well, the Chiefs did that. My Steelers went and signed Cordero Patterson, who has a history of being a good kick returner, the day that this this rule came out. So to kind of envision it, your kicker's kicking the ball off from the same spot they always were, except now your receiving team has guys lined up on the 30-yard line on the other side of the field. The kicking team has their guys on the 40 on the other side of the field. There's what's known as the landing zone. It's approximately the goal line to the 20-yard line that the ball will have to be kicked into, and no one on that line, the 30-foot and the 40-yard line, can move until the ball either hits the returner or hits the ground. So it was a two-prong approach. One, player safety. The kickoff is the most violent play still in the game because guys get running full tilt down the field and a lot of concussions and other injuries happen. So they're trying to limit that. But two, it's been just a steady decline in actual kickoffs in football for over a decade because these kickers, their legs are getting so big and they just think risk a return or just bomb it out of the end zone. I'll bomb it out of the end zone and give you the touchback. So now they're making touchbacks a little more painful because if you kick it out of the back of the end zone, they get the ball at the 30 now. And trying to incentivize returns. You can actually have two guys back in the catching area moving around at all times. You can actually draw up return plays a little bit, and it's going to look really weird. The first few games you watch, it's not going to look anything like what you're used to seeing, but I think after we adjust to that, I think it's a good thing because I think we're actually going to see kick returns come back into the game.
And that's exactly what the NFL wants. They knew that they made a mistake when they kind of limited it, as you just pointed out. But that's an exciting part. Now, the WAG or the controversial aspect, perfectly legal to call a fair catch. Yet, it is not. There are no fair catches anymore on the kickoff. So if the guy signals for it, he's fair game. I'll tell you, he better start running and running quickly.
Josh, your thoughts?
I think it's stupid.
Really, you any more to add to it other than thinking that it's stupid?
I understand player safety, but come on. If you were really concerned with player safety, you would make the equipment better. Because the innovations in the equipment for players have been pretty stagnant with the exception of the little tweaks they've done to helmets in the last few years to try to disperse the energy of an impact. This is more about they want higher scoring games, they want more excitement, and that's one of the aspects that they think they can increase that in is making you have to return a kickoff again. And like you said, Alec, punishing the team more for kicking it out of the back of the end zone. So it's going to encourage more kickoff returns, which will be exciting, but it's stupid.
Now keep in mind, it's just a one-year experiment. It comes for review next year.
Yeah.
I disagree with you. I don't think it's stupid. One of the things I do enjoy about football is the innovation, is that they're always trying to find ways to make the game better. I think having guys not run full steam down the field like cannonballs at each other is a good idea not to have that. And, let's be honest, the kickoff return is one of the most exciting things in all of football.
When you get it.
Yeah, and you hardly ever get it anymore.
Nowadays, most teams are probably averaging over 80% touchbacks forced, especially if you're a team with a Butker or a Justin Tucker who have these massive legs. Weighing in on the player safety, if the NFL did truly care about player safety, they wouldn't play the game. But that's not going to happen. So
I think they just need to wrap everybody in bubble wrap then.
It's like it's
or put them in those big inflatable sumo suits. Let them play that way.
It's like
but look, if you're a fan of the game, if you're a fan of football, one of the worst things to see is your quarterback, especially if your team relies on a quarterback. That's so important to see him get hurt or see anybody get hurt, and it just ruins your chances from the very start of the whole season. And since they've implemented these rules to protect quarterbacks specifically, you're seeing less of, he got hurt in the second preseason game, so they're just wrapping it up for the season.
No, and look, I am not saying that they shouldn't have player safety, but I'm saying this particular instance, the kickoff and kickoff return, just don't do it then. Don't just have them stand there until the ball hits the 20-yard line. That's dumb.
I think that's where they were going
doing
next.
it. If that's what you want as far as a player safety issue, just stop doing it.
I think they wanted to keep the play and make it safer because I think there's a lot of room for excitement, which that's what the NFL's trying to sell. They want splash plays. They know that's going to be.
But I know I'm not in the minority. Part of the excitement for me is when there is a big hit, when the defense gets a huge hit on another player.
Sure.
I'm not saying to injure. I'm saying when you hear the pads crack because the linebacker takes out the running back at the line of scrimmage. That's what they're legislating out of football is the contact. So what does it become?
Flag football.
Yeah.
It's like,
and look, and I know that player safety needs to be an issue because the NFL has had so many problems with concussions and post-concussion syndrome and all of the problems that retired players have had that can be directly attributed to the punishment they took as a player. And they've made great strides towards that. But I come back to what I said a minute ago. Improve the equipment they wear for player safety. It's possible.
417-863-7104 if you'd like to join in our conversation about player safety, about the new kickoff rule, about the new tackling rule. Did they add any other things to?
No, they were the two primary rules that they came up with. There were probably some other minor additions that were made to how the game was going to be called, but they were the two major ones that are going to directly affect, I should say, how the audience watches the game and how the officials call the game. They were the immediate two. And I can see it. You have to understand, Josh, and I don't think it's so much head injuries as it is the knee injuries that they want to try to eliminate. And that they've taken a ratio of kickoff returns, and it was something like, some large number, 300 knee injuries occurring on kickoff returns, where they think they can eliminate that now with the players standing and apportioned differently on the field. And who knows whether or not that's right. It's a one-year experiment, but it will be in effect this year.
XFL is where this rule came from, by the way.
That's
so
correct.
I pass that along to everybody.
I want to say there
my favorite
was
league.
Your favorite
My
favorite league.
You mean, isn't that the United Football League?
That's the
then?
United Football
now
League
the
on
UFL.
right now.
With two divisions. The the UFL or USFL division and the XFL division.
Kind of like
You
the
know
merger.
you're a league when Wade Phillips is coaching in it.
Yes.
Yeah, now you're
Now
official.
you're
He will be
legit.
he'll be coming to Springfield, I'm sure, in the fall to coach a Y flag football team. He just
Yeah.
loves coaching,
Some
and there's nothing wrong.
Kiwanis football.
Nothing wrong with that. Wade Phillips, just keep doing it.
Yep.
So one of the other stories that came out of the owners' meeting and then all the rules is they have now agreed that there's a few other things that can be reviewed as part of the replay process. What are your thoughts about that?
Well,
Ned?
it's going to lengthen the game.
Yep.
They have already they wanted to shorten the NFL owners wanted to shorten the game because it was getting out of hand. 3 hours and 30 minutes. So they incorporated some new, and it took probably about 10 minutes off the game. Well, this will add more than that, especially if they have to review the tackling rule, because, good Lord, you can almost challenge any single play if that's going to be the case. I'm very surprised at that one, but we'll see how it all works out.
What'd you think about that, Alec?
If it's in terms of shortening games, I think I'm open to things being reviewed because ultimately I just want the calls to be right. I think everybody wants that, but I think the answer is let's expand the referee staffs and crews. Let's have someone always on hand watching for that. So if they call up a replay, have a guy with the authority just to say yes or no. It was something that they did, and it was either the XFL or one of those leagues where they actually had a mic on the guy, and it was less than 20, 30 seconds where they go and be like, hey, we got this. What do you see? He's on site rather than having to go to New York. Mm-hmm. And he just goes, I see this. It's that. Thank you. Move on with the game.
Which is, I might add, too, they used to have the replay official at the games. They still do, but that official has no authority at all. It all goes to New York. That's where the final decisions are made.
Is that new to that? Have they?
In the last couple of years.
Yeah, see, that's the way Major League Baseball is.
It is indeed.
So I'd say if you really want to speed it up, you need to have a guy on site with the authority to make the decision.
I agree.
Right now, I get why they funnel it all to the same place, because then you can say all the decisions come from the mothership. That's where we're making the calls from.
And
they
now
can
only-
back their guys if it's all coming from the same
and now
spot.
It's not a conspiracy theory. It's only one guy getting paid off.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this. because this has always puzzled me about replay in Major League Baseball, is why not expand the crew to a 5-man crew? And then your 5th guy rotates into the booth, and he does all the replay. But do you think the reason they don't do that is fear of animosity within a crew on overturned calls?
Maybe, but maybe it's a financial one too. That part,
Yeah.
I just don't know, because you would be adding an official, and now you have, as Josh pointed out, you have the individuals involved watching every game and making decisions and seeing it. I'm a little bit puzzled by the whole thing, but nonetheless, replay is going to be a part of what they do and what the rulings are going to be made. And if they reviewed every call that Angel Hernandez makes, you can overturn every single one.
Okay, answer.
Everybody gets thrown out by the end of the game.
It's a controversy in every sport. They just started doing it in Premier League soccer a few years ago, and it's been controversial every year because there have been missed calls. There have been calls that shouldn't have been. There have been, whenever there's a human error aspect to all of it, and you're never going to eliminate that, so you're always going to have blown calls. And I think that the only answer is what you guys are talking about. There needs to be more of a crew that is just devoted to reviewing those types of plays to speed things up.
That means more money.
And that means, well,
It's more money to pay them, but
the NFL's printing money.
I was like, they got the money to afford it, I know, but
They could make it happen
that's
if
your
they
answer
want.
to speed up the games is
Yeah.
someone with the ultimate authority on site. But I don't see them doing it because they're going to want to be able to control their narrative a little better if it all
I
flows through
think
one
that's
spot.
probably right, Alec, what
So-
you just said. They
so
want
I-
to be able to control it.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll see it happen, but especially if they can review these hip drop tackles, because I get the why they're being implemented, and my hope is when we actually get into the game, you don't see it thrown a ton. My hope is maybe you see 5 a game during the preseason of the refs really being like, that's what we're looking for, that's what you did, and the players can take that time to maybe get some tape on it. But it's going to be, ultimately, you want to take judgment calls away from the refs as much as you possibly can, and that's all pass interferences. So now we've just added another high routine play in a tackle as like coverage that the ref is going to have to make a judgment call on, and it's going to cost games.
I'm not 100% clear on what are they saying you can't do as far as tackling.
You can't grab the guy up in the upper torso and drag him down. The runner ought to just, by nature, turns his side. You just do that. That's human nature when the tackler's coming up to you. Well, you can't throw the guy down from the side and land on his legs. It's designed to eliminate the knee injury.
Imagine I wrapped you up and then I just went dead weight and I just fell and you fell. Your legs fell below me. It's how Mark Andrews was the most prolific player this past season for Baltimore who got hurt because a defender came up from the side, wrapped him up. Mark Andrews probably had 50 pounds on him, and he drops his weight and he falls on Mark Andrews' ankle. His ankle gets torn up. He's out until the playoffs, where he's still not the same guy by the time he comes back. And it's cost, I think it was Kenyon Drake, former running back, who was vocal about being in support of this, and he showed he lost his 2021 season to a guy coming in from the side. I think ideally I have a friend who's a coach, and he said they coach their kids to wrap at the waist and gator roll is how he calls it. Spin the body, so their legs don't fall on you. But, he's a high school coach. When you're tackling Mark Andrews, who's every bit a 260, and you're a 210-pound corner, if you gator roll, you're probably just going to fling off of him. So I think you're going to see a lot of carries go for an extra 5 to 10 yards as guys try and a lot of broken tackles, a lot of extra yardage as they fight through the contact, and but a lot of preserved ankles and knees potentially, and that's the spirit of the rule.
Josh, you look puzzled as all this is being spelled out to you.
Well, I agree with what Ned said at the beginning of that. It's going to be really tough to prevent that. It's going to be tough that's going to be hard for the officials to get. I mean, there's going to be a learning period that's going to be frustrating for everybody with that, because that seems like a fairly normal way to tackle an opponent. Especially if you're a smaller guy and you hit them high and you're trying to bring them to the ground, because that's the whole point, is to get them on the ground.
Yeah.
Is if you wrap them up around their shoulders and then you just go dead weight, if they're strong enough to keep carrying you, that's one thing. But I don't know. That's going to be tough for them to do, I think. But we'll see.
We'll talk more about sports when we come back. If you want to text us, 417-863-7104. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We are broadcasting live on this Easter from the Cave Studios. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, who the show is named after, Ned Talk. I know he regrets that, but that's what it's called.
Too bad,
Alex
buddy.
Scott, Josh Roberts, and we're talking all sorts of stuff. We're watching UFL football right now. A guy by the name of Wing, number 4.
I think that's Brad Wing. He was
Brad
an NFL
Wing.
punter.
And for what? Another former NFL player.
Former NFL player. So these guys could be the next big star that you see. We're watching the kickoff reel right now. That was not very exciting.
Actually, when you take a look at it, this is a combination of the XFL and the United States Football League, and they have made the divisions in the league, but it's all going to be incorporated under the same ruling, and they all play each other. So, yeah, I think this could be legitimately considered a AAA for the National Football League. They're going to get some players from there. Maybe not be a great number of them, and there are some who are under contract to the NFL who are playing in this.
You're right. It was a fake punt.
Well, and you look at his last name's Turpin, Devon something. He plays for Dallas. He was the MVP for one of these leagues, and they signed him, and he made the Pro Bowl as a special teamer. So there you go. I like that there's a pathway for guys that's other than just, did you get into the pros out of college? No. Well, then good luck going to tryouts. Let them continue to get reps and get better. There's going to be really good players that can come out of this. I don't know. Again, it's going to be a low percentage, but I like that it's an option for guys to go get more reps in after college, because some guys are just late bloomers. They're not ready coming right out of college, but they give them a few more years and they grow into it.
He said bloomers. All right, let's talk about Final Four. Been pretty exciting tournament, and it's I heard somebody say that it had gone pretty much to chalk, but I think that got ruined this weekend. And just for everybody's edification out there, Ned is out. You are still in, Alec. You chose UConn. You chose Alabama, Josh, so you're still in, and I chose Purdue, so I'm still in too. So we're still in. Arizona. What happened to Arizona?
Well, they just went to sleep in their game. Here, Arizona, in my opinion, had man for man, maybe not the best team, but certainly one of the top 3 teams in the country, and they just completely went to sleep in their game. The same as Houston. When it came down to what is really the ultimate deciding factors in the game, they couldn't make their shots, couldn't rebound. I'm just appalled at the lack of mentality that went into those games, because these are both of those teams, Houston and Arizona, really good, solid teams who were both numbers 1 in the country. And what happens? They do an El Foldo. A lot of this has to do with mentality. I'm going to use as an example Duke, the Duke men's team. Hey, the Blue Devils are probably physically not as good as some of these other ball clubs, but they play such a disciplined, strategic-oriented game because of who they are, that they can beat teams like Houston and force them to panic and force them to make bad shots and things of that nature. Does that work today, or is it today or tomorrow they play North Carolina State? Is that later on?
It's today.
It's today. Yep.
Yeah, because the men's Final Four will be decided on Sunday.
Yeah.
When they play North Carolina State for the 3rd time this year, how that comes out, this is going to be very interesting. I think Duke has a chance to win it, although North Carolina State has that catalyst at center who is really tough. They played 3 times. Each team's won once.
Alec, can anybody beat your UConn pick?
It's looking looking like that's going to be a real tough out. That team is playing very well. We got a Roll Tide going to my side here, and it's possible. You watched yesterday's game for UConn. It was a 5-point game at half. Illinois was not playing great, but they were hanging in there, and then a 30-0 run from the late first half through half of the second half, and that just kills it. And, that's the type of talent they have. They have the ability to flip that switch, per se. But, that was against an Illinois team who was hanging in there. What happens if if Alabama comes out shooting hot and UConn starts that slow? Will that be enough to chase Alabama down? They were fortunate that Illinois also was not shooting well in that first half before they finally flipped the switch. So they look but other teams are playing really well right now. NC State's on that impressive win streak, feeling really good about themselves. Duke's playing as a tight squad. Zach Edey for Purdue, that team's looking great. So I think we're in for an exciting finish here in the men's tournament because everyone who's made it this far is playing really well.
What is it? 10 consecutive double-digit wins in the tournament for UConn?
Every one last year and every one this year so far, they have won by double digits. They are just steamrolling people, and it's not going to continue forever, but for now, they're going to keep trying to ride that hot hand.
But Bama's in their way, right?
Yeah.
Bama's in their way.
Bama's playing hot. Bama's playing good basketball, and this is, by far going to be their toughest challenge because UConn has that ability to go on a 30-0 run, and they're solid. So that's going to be a great
Josh,
game.
They are in the Final Four, and that makes a big difference. Your whole mentality is altered by doing that. And this is first time for Alabama's basketball ever to be. And where are they playing? In a football arena.
That's awesome.
Well, I feel nice and comfortable there. The fans should be able to fill that out, no problem.
I would think so. That's going to be a great game, though.
Zach Edey is a man among boys right now. You don't see guys at the college level that are built quite like him. He is physically ready to play in the NBA.
And he is athletic. He's not what used to be called a goon out there. No, indeed. He can play the game. He has great footwork. He weighs 300 pounds, guys, and they list him at 7'4". He's probably a little bit taller than that. This guy can get it done. He's a good player. His turnaround jump shots, his little baby hook shots. They're really good.
And it's easy to run everything through them. All you got to get it to Edey in the post, and if they don't swarm to him, let him do his thing. If they do, kick it out to a guard. And I don't know, but I love when they do the coach interviews. Like, what do you do about Zach Edey? And they're like, well, shrink him a foot. I don't know. We don't have anyone on our roster physically tall enough to do anything about it. So
it should be an interesting game today because the kid from Tennessee, he plays a completely different build, but is equally as great college basketball player.
Fine player.
So you're going to see two really good individual players on two really good teams playing this afternoon, along with the Duke North Carolina State game. So, our predictions hold true. Who do you have winning the games today, Ned?
Well, you're asking the wrong guy because my team is out of it. However, in the ones today, I have to go with Duke. I think Duke will beat North Carolina State. And
Brian Tyndall just gave you a raise, by the way.
he's a Duke fan.
He's a Dookie fan, yeah.
Which one is the first game? That one I don't know.
I guess we'll look it up.
Yeah, look on your schedule.
Purdue, Tennessee's at 1:20. Okay. NC State, Duke at 4:05.
Okay, Purdue, Tennessee. That one, folks, has me concerned for Purdue. Tennessee is a very, very, very good basketball team. And once they get on a roll, they can beat a lot of folks, and they have this year beaten a lot of folks. I'm not going to give Tennessee the nod here. I'm going to give it to Purdue, but it wouldn't be surprising to see the Volunteers come up with it. And Coach Rick Barnes, has been around for years and years. So I will pick, but I do think Purdue probably wins that. I'm going to predict Purdue and Duke.
What do you think, Alec?
Going to agree with you on Purdue for sure. I do think this Purdue team looks different. They are still shaking off what happened last year in the tournament with that early exit, and they wanted to make a statement that that's not who they are, and this is a different team, and they look like it. They look like they're playing like they believe it too. So I do think Purdue gets it done against Tennessee. I think I'm going to go NC State. Just I don't know, something about that team. They're playing really well together. You can tell they believe, and they're hot. we talk about it a lot in baseball, but it's like they're hot at the right time. They're hitting their stride. They feel confident. They feel good. So I think it's going to be UConn, Bama, and then Purdue, NC State as your Final Four.
Same thing for Alabama, playing really well.
Right.
So what do you think, Josh? What's your picks?
I've got
today?
NC State and Purdue winning these games. And you know what's interesting is listening to the announcers and the TNT studio guys. What they say about North Carolina State is they lost 4 games in a row, and then they haven't lost since. So they've won 9 in a row now, and they learned how to win. That's what they kept saying. Is in the early part of the regular season for North Carolina State, they were in close games, but they were losing them, and then something clicked, and they've learned how to win as they've gone along, and so they're hot. So that's why I picked them. And then Purdue, all they talk about it when they talk about Purdue is that how dominant they think this kid is going to be in the NBA. They're saying that they feel like he could play 12 to 14 minutes every game for an NBA team and dominate that 12 to 14.
I think that's right,
12 to
because
14 minutes.
He is mature and he is big. And here's a little of your poetic justice into that. Everybody knows about North Carolina State's 5 straight wins in the ACC tournament, and then what do they have, 4 more since then?
Yep.
Who's the team that they beat to start that big long winning streak? Duke.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, I got. I'm going to go against myself. I picked Tennessee to win.
Nice.
I think they'll just pull it out today, and I think Duke's going to win too. That's my picks. And when we come back, we've got some college basketball story that might seem like a rerun to you, but we'll talk about it next. It has to do with our own local Bears. When we come back, right here on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Just sitting around in the studio discussing what it was like to grow up in the 80s.
Yes.
Kind of not right. It's Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. Josh Roberts, Alex Scott, Ned Reynolds, Joe Westen, and the Bears just flipped open the Rolodex, and a few names back was Quanzo Martin, and they gave him a call, and guess what? He's the coach again. What do you think, Ned?
Well, you look at it, I look at it 2 ways. I espouse the theory that we should have somebody back here who has an affinity for the area and who has a history of what is going on, knowledge of the history. Quanzo was not who I had in mind when I made that thought, but Quanzo Martin was here. He did have 3 years at the helm of Missouri State before winning the Missouri Valley Conference Championship and then taking the job at Tennessee. He's been to Tennessee, California, Missouri, and now coming back here. Been out of coaching now for a couple of years, probably by his choice. I don't think he wanted to get right back into it again. But the fact that he wants to come back and be a part of the team, I find that to be a positive. I'm going to say it's a good choice. Right now I think it is, although Quanzo, and he knows this fully well, has to talk to the bulk of his team into coming back because almost all of them are in the transfer portal now, and that certainly doesn't bode well. And these are some good players. There's some good talent on the Bears ball club. It's just getting them to play together and to follow the discipline and formula for what a winning team can have. Well, Quanzo has that. He had success at his other stops, including Tennessee, where he wasn't particularly happy, but when there was the fandom wanted him out of there, all he did was take his team to the Sweet 16 that year and play very well. So he has the coaching ability to get this done.
There is a trajectory in most careers, and I think you would definitely consider this a backwards move if you were coaching and you were still looking to move forward. Do you think that this for Quanzo Martin is this is more of a long-term stay for him this time?
That I don't know. We'll find that out when the press conference is held tomorrow here in town at the Prime Club in the Great Southern Bank Arena. It's a 1 o'clock press conference. Maybe he can elaborate on that. Maybe he won't. Everybody knows what his starting salary is, $600,000 a year with a lot of perks involved. And that doesn't sound like it's going backwards to me. I can put a few turkey sandwiches on the table for that, and so can he.
Yeah, well, $600,000 in Springfield, Missouri goes a long ways.
But it does not rank among the top ones in the Valley, though.
No.
I would like to throw my hat in the ring to be MSU's next coach.
Yeah.
I'll do it for 1 year.
Yeah, you can eat at Applebee's all year long for $600,000.
Right.
That's quite a bit of money. Well, it was an interesting move. I heard about it earlier in the week, and I was like, well, no, wait. No, they didn't do that, did they? And then later on and confirmed, yes, hired by Missouri State as their coach. Couldn't they gone a couple further back, maybe gotten Barry Henson? I'm not knocking Quanzo Martin at all. It just seems a very odd move.
Well, we'll find out because he's going to be the coach, and it'll be up to him to reconstruct the basketball team. But even more than that, it'll be up to him and that whole team to get some fannies back in the seats there, because there are none right now. I've never seen these crowds that they have, gang, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, but the crowds they had at the Great Southern Bank Arena, I went to almost all the games, would not have filled up the McDonald Arena.
Wow.
That's how small they were.
Wow. Let's turn our attention to baseball, because you know what? It is the best time of the year. Everybody has got a chance right now, unless you're the Kansas City Royals.
Or my Cubs.
Or I think the Cubs got a chance this year. I think it's too early, but Alec and I talked throughout the week, and you were not happy that the Cardinals got to start against the sweethearts of baseball right now, the Dodgers.
4-game series. They got the first Friday night Apple game, and then they got Sunday night baseball. So clearly the big networks want to put the Dodgers on as much as possible.
And Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and, I believe every year the Cardinals end up with a 4-game road trip to the Dodgers. So it's not, or they have a 4-game in St. Louis. So it's not, it's got to happen at some point. And they're 1-2 up to this point. The pitching has looked really bad. That's been unfortunate to see that, our worst fears seem to be continuing forward, is that our pitching rotation can't handle the elite lineups.
Didn't you feel like Lance Lynn pitched fairly well last night?
He did, it was ugly, but it was effective. I watched Yamamoto strike out the side in the top of the first, and then I watched Lance Lynn load the bases and then strike out the side.
Nobody out.
In the top of the first. So they did the same thing, but Lance Lynn had to do it on 30 more pitches. But, it worked. And, they got the win, and that's what matters the most. And this is a very tough team they're playing. They have a shot to split a 4-game series in L.A. I think any team in baseball would take that right now. And this is without Sonny Gray, the biggest of the acquisitions. But my concern is we're picking up right where we left off, and that's at best 500 baseball.
What'd you think of Yamamoto?
The bit I got to watch, he got shelled in Seoul. He went 1 inning, 40-something pitches, allowed, I think it was 5 or 6 runs, so he had a bad debut. His stuff looked pretty good. The fastball was fast. The off-speed stuff had quite a bit of movement. The Cardinals had trouble with him. They didn't get much done against Yamamoto. It wasn't until after the rain delay and in the later innings where they actually started doing some damage. So he looked good. He's got the stuff. It's just going to be a matter of can he continue to locate it the way he wants to.
Yeah, through his translator, he did say, I didn't have anything in Korea. Nothing at all. Just didn't feel good about pitching, and it showed. He said, I did tonight, and this is again through the translator. He said, I did feel better. I had command of my pitches for the most part. He didn't say had all of them. But he really felt comfortable about being on the mound. Yamamoto is going to be a good pitcher. He's the real deal.
His translator said there's 6-1 odds on the. How are the Cubbies doing?
Oh, they're 0-2. They're playing the Rangers in their first series and have lost the first 2. But the Rangers are pretty darn good, so I'm not upset. I mean, it's just the beginning of the season. It's all excitement right now.
Well, it's kind of interesting to me that it seems like everybody's, well, I won't say everybody, but it seems like there's an urgency to begin the season with teams already, because there have been at least two incidences where baseball's already chippy. This early in the year, we saw a pitcher push a player at third base yesterday. That pitcher was suspended 3 games today. And then there was the deal with the Brewers where one of their players was mouthing off, and he got thrown behind him.
Well, I saw it happen. I happened to be watching that game, the Brewers and the New York Mets, and the Mets runner slid hard into second base and maybe with his spikes up a little bit and maybe caught the shortstop. And dumped him. He dumped him at second base. And when the shortstop got up, he made some remark to the other, and that's where the guys came out. And yeah, there was a little pushing and shoving, typical baseball get together. But yeah, it probably was a carryover from some other incident from several years ago, or maybe even last year. But whatever. But it can happen. I mean, these guys are competitors, and you're playing for some big bucks out there.
The good players, I think, the good pitchers especially, file away those incidences in their Rolodex, and when there's an opportunity, they look to get back at players for the things that they've done in the past. So it's exciting to see baseball back. I'm excited. The NCAA tournament's been really good, and on top of all of it, we got UFFL football. Just as great. When we come back, we'll tell you what we're watching on TV this afternoon. It is Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We've not gotten any more news about Rashee Rice or what's going on with that story. We'll, if we find out something, we'll pass it along to you. A car accident earlier today that apparently his vehicle was involved in. No word about him or whether he was driving or what's going on. We know something. We'll try to pass that along. We got the guys in the studio. You guys might as well share with us. You're talking hockey.
Talking hockey, for the local squad, my Blues I'm rooting for. We were just, recapping where they're at. They're 5 points behind the LA Kings for the final playoff spot, which, it's going to be a tall mountain to climb to get there, but when you look at where this team was last year, sellers at the trade deadline, well eliminated by this point. This was the arrow's up. This is a team getting better. That's what you can hope for. They've got games left against the bottom three teams on their side, Chicago, Anaheim, and San Jose, who they already lost to San Jose last night. And then but they've also got games against Edmonton and the Stars and the Predators and the Hurricanes. So they've got a fine mix of really easy, really hard opponents with Seattle for good measure in there. So
there might be some, Alec, who are not familiar with how the Stanley Cup works, but it's 16 teams. It's your 3 division winners, and there are obviously 2 divisions in each conference. Your 3 division winners plus the 2 wild card in the conference, not just in a division, but in a conference. And the Blues are right on the cusp of being one of those wild card teams, but they're not there. They're 5 points back. And can they make up those 5 points with their wins coming up in the next 9 games? They can. Will they? That's the key.
And more importantly, will the Kings lose enough to let them catch them?
Exactly.
And they missed a golden opportunity yesterday because the Kings lost yesterday. The Blues should have handled home ice business against the worst team in hockey, San Jose, and lost 4-0. So if you want to ask me, is this team ready to be a serious playoff contender, that might be your answer. But again, better than last year. That's what we're looking for, improvement.
So what do we've yet to discuss too, that there's the women's Final Fours going on right now too, and there's a big matchup that'll be next weekend between LSU and Iowa, and it should be pretty interesting.
I don't think that's next week.
Or
I think
it's
tomorrow.
It might be tomorrow. Yeah, the Elite Eight for
tomorrow.
the women's tournament is happening now. I believe let's go to the scoreboard. Oregon State and South Carolina are approaching halftime right now. South Carolina winning 37-30, who to me still the favorite. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese get all the attention because they're star players. I don't say they don't deserve it. They're very, very good, but that South Carolina team is probably top to
I'm
bottom.
going to throw in another one, too, for what it's worth, and that's Oriema's Connecticut Lady Huskies. I watched them play. They have a player, in my opinion, Paige Beckers, who is better than Clark. She is a really smooth, and she's also been around longer than Clark, and will because she's going to play again next year. But their team yesterday played Duke, and Duke cheated in the game. They played defense. And I mean it threw Connecticut completely. Now, Connecticut won the game in a very low-scoring game. Duke shot themselves in the proverbial foot by not being able to score at key times. But Connecticut showed some vulnerability. However, they are going to play, and they're going to play tomorrow for a berth in the Final Four, and that will be very, very interesting how they do.
Josh, what are your picks for the women's Final Four?
I haven't watched enough of it to have a competent pick, but I think Iowa's going to make it just because she's so dominant. I think South Carolina will be there. You can never underestimate Gino Auriemma. He's the grumpiest basketball coach in the women's.
The Philadelphia guy,
Yeah,
come on.
Of course, that's why he's grumpy.
Did I tell you I saw Gino Auriemma on a street one time? I was living in St. Louis at the time, and the Final Four was there, or the tournament was there, and he was just walking down the street in St. Louis. And I said, "Hey, Gino!" And he just, waved at the air because of
He's like, whoever.
He's
It's
Gino.
like, to whomever out there, hello.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's my brush with greatness.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Ned, what are you going to watch on TV this afternoon? Basketball,
Well,
I take
this
it?
is an afternoon for chores, including mowing and all that. But tonight, I think I'll watch a little bit of the Cardinals games. I will get the Cardinals on TV tonight. That's the one outlet, ESPN, that I can get them on. So watch a little bit of that and maybe some of the basketball that'll be on.
Alec?
Yeah, be rotating in the basketball. Definitely watching the men's side. Probably have the women's side on as I can. Some Cardinals baseball. We got a family gathering tonight, so I'll be seeing all of them. But we all like the sports as well, so we'll have that on around. But yeah, just catching what I can where I can.
Josh?
I'm going to try to watch the men's games today, and I'm going to try to watch the women's games too. But I'm also going to go for a walk at some point because this is a beautiful day.
Come over and mow my lawn if you want to.
Oh, please, Ned.
If you come mow mine, I'll mow yours. But you got to do mine first, and then I'll tell you when I can get to yours.
Thank you.
I am riveted to this I keep saying XFL, UFL game, so I think I'm going to go home and finish this up and see what's going on. Actually, the good thing is that this looks actually a little bit more like football than what I saw last year. So, so that's a good sign.
They're improving.
All right. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Thanks to Brian Tyndall, Corbin Campbell, Mike the Intern, and Nick Fury. Have a great Easter weekend and be safe. You can listen to us as a podcast. Just download Ned Talk wherever you get your podcasts at.
Celebrate and save at Ashley's Anniversary Sale. With Hot Buys, your choice of colors starting at just $3.99. Ashley Sleep mattresses starting at $250. Plus, receive a free adjustable base with select mattress purchases. And shop top mattress brands like Stearns & Foster, Tempur-Pedic, Purple, and Beauty Rest Black with special financing options for every budget. Only at Ashley in North Charleston and Mount Pleasant. Subject to credit approval. No minimum purchase required. Minimum monthly payment, down payment, tax, and delivery may be required. See store for details.